Justin Marshall, welcome back as always, 81 Test veteran for the All Blacks. And of course, he's part of the Sky Sport presentation team. Not in Argentina, it was all studio based on Saturday. But welcome back, mate, looking forward to it.
Yeah, great to be chatting again, Marty. And a really entertaining weekend of rugby, wasn't it, when you throw the under-20s, unfortunately, into the mix, as well as the All Blacks 15 and then the All Blacks in South Africa flexing their muscles. It was quite entertaining.
And that's not even talking about what happened on the field after the game as well. We'll get on to that. But first and foremost, look, just on that All Black performance, can we get overexcited about that, or do we just have to wait to see how we go against South Africa first and assess it after 2 games?
Oh, look, I think they can be very, reassured by that performance. It's never easy going to Argentina and playing over there. They hadn't been to Mendoza in 32 years. Different environment. A lot of those players hadn't experienced being down that part of Argentina and playing the Pumas down there. And, having been forced into having to make a few decisions through injuries and suspensions and unavailability, the side that was put out there went out and did a demolition job on a very good on-paper side that Argentina put out. So I think, absolutely, there's still a true test coming at the weekend against what's going to be a very good South African side, but that was a good Argentinian side, and they were made to look very ordinary.
Can we also look at that Australia versus South Africa game and put that same caveat on it, going, well, we don't really know how good South Africa are because Australia were particularly poor?
To a degree, yeah, but again, they had, the odds against them. I did believe that was absolutely the type of recipe that Eddie Jones needed with his coaching strategy. The fact that the Springboks had sent some of their key players to New Zealand, it was the perfect storm and an opportunity for him, to get his players wound up. They don't respect us. They're looking a week ahead and produce a performance. And I don't know whether it was, as you mentioned, Australia just not coming up to the level they needed to, or equally South Africa just being too good and showing that they've got true squad depth, because players that stepped in, like Esterhuizen in the midfield, Willemse, they are a complete outfit and they look very, very good.
Well, this is what we needed at a World Cup, 33 players. They've all got to be interchangeable because, we are going to have injuries. We are going to have abstentions, aren't we? And so whoever comes up, next guy up, has got to be able to do that. I mean, we see it with Ireland. We saw it during the Six Nations, Justin, that guys, they were losing guys and guys stepped up. That's what you expect of All Black rugby, isn't it?
Yeah, you do. And that's why you need to make sure that you do have a squad that, should there be injuries in key positions or injuries at all, that the side seamlessly is still able to play the game plan that they want to play. Players slip in seamlessly, and you can go out there and make sure that the team performance doesn't drop and you have a day off that is catastrophic. And that's what can happen at a Rugby World Cup. So I certainly feel that South Africa showed that they've got great squad depth. Not so much Australia. It's real worrying for them where they're going to go to from here. That was quite a comprehensive drubbing that they've got. And they've also introduced guys like Quade Cooper, Nick White still getting his chance. But, it'll be very worrying for them exactly where they're going to go after being put to the sword by a South African B/A team.
81 Test veteran of the All Blacks, and he's working for Sky, not there in Argentina. I know that you can't comment too much about that, mate, because they are paying your wages, but I kind of feel that something gets lost when the commentary team isn't actually there. And I'm one of those rare fans who I like hearing from the players. I like hearing the past players talk to those guys, and I just like hearing the atmosphere that you actually bring when you're physically present, because I don't know. I mean, I could tell as soon as I switched on the telly that you guys went there. It was obvious to me.
Yeah, well, obviously you haven't got the stadium environment, have you? And that is a massive point of difference. You don't feel the energy of the stadium. You don't see what's unfolding in front of you because you're just looking at a TV screen. So it is different, and those decisions are made for all types of various reasons. But at the end of the day, I think when you have to do your job, you've got to go out and do it with what you're confronted with the best of your capabilities.
There you go.
So that's the way it is. But look, I certainly feel that, when you look at that performance in Mendoza and you saw how feverish it looked the crowd were at the start, I must admit I was thinking, this is going to be a tough old afternoon for the All Blacks, but it was far from it, wasn't it? It was from the opening exchanges, apart from Argentina not getting that charge down try, that could have turned the game, but it didn't. The All Blacks were always in control of that match.
What did you like particularly? I made a lot of notes. I was just wanting to run them by. First and foremost, I thought, the guys that we hadn't seen play particularly well during Super Rugby, guys like Rieko Ioane, guys like Beauden Barrett, even Aaron Smith, played their best games of the season. And I looked at Aaron and I thought he was back slinging those 25, 30-metre passes, which cut out the midfield, which is the key point of difference, giving you a half a second or a second extra room space. I mean, that is how the All Blacks play our best rugby, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But what is going to be interesting is how the All Blacks adapt. Now, absolutely, their execution at the weekend was really good. I certainly noticed that they weren't going as often for the out-the-back play. They were just tipping on to the front runners rather than looking for more depth. At times, they showed variation where they did that. So there was an adjustment there, and that certainly was evident. And the width that Aaron Smith was giving those ball runners was really good. But South Africa defend differently. They're very unique in the way that they defend, and they do have this ability to really narrow the field on you and make you go into areas where they want you to go. So it's going to be interesting to see how, with a different defensive mindset, the All Blacks adjust their game plan and still are able to generate as quick a ball as what they did at the weekend. Because to me, that was the key. The ruck speed ball was so fast that it had the Argentinians had defenders on their heels, not on their toes. So the key is, when South Africa defend the way they do, get them on their heels, on the back foot. You do not want them coming forward to you all day because they can really suffocate you and narrow the field and shut you down.
Justin, explain the attacking from deep thing to us as well, mate, because this is where McKenzie it looks as though he's lying 3 or 4 metres back, but then the way he attacks it on the angle, it creates that gap or gives him the opportunity to get outside. And this is why I was so disappointed that you're actually not there in person, because when you get a full field in front of you, I know that you can explain it a lot better, but what were you seeing?
Yeah, so basically what he was doing was he was taking a little bit of depth, but not the transitional depth where you're looking for a return pass or a couple of decoy runners, so you can't get too flat. He was starting sort of medium depth, and then by the time he got the pass from Aaron Smith, his movements were quite forward, so he was getting the ball really on the gain line, and that was making it really hard for Argentina because they had to consider him as a threat. And then likewise, all the other players just got their timing off a player that was getting the ball really flat. And they just kept running their lines. Like the Rieko Ioane try was a classic example of that, where he just took a little bit of depth, but instead of going hard at the defender, he went slightly lateral. The defender bit on him, came out and absolutely hammered him, to be fair, but not before he got the pass away. And Rieko Ioane didn't do anything different. He just completely ran his line and just waited for McKenzie to be where he was supposed to be. I thought he orchestrated that really, really well all afternoon.
As far as the forwards went, what impressed you the most? I thought scrum-wise we held our own. I mean, here was Josh Lord winning against the line-out. That doesn't happen in international rugby that often. So disrupting their ball, holding our own in the scrum, getting that good platform, pretty much that gives you those attacking, it just increases your attacking options, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely it does. And I certainly feel that, Argentina in the past couple of years really have brought back one of their strengths, which is their scrummaging. And, their set piece since Michael Check has been involved, even under Ledesma, they started to really function a lot better. The All Blacks completely dominated all facets of the set piece at the weekend. Argentina's lineup was okay, but in general, the scrum, the work of the front row, the tight five, Josh Lord, like you said, being back in there. I thought Scott Barrett was outstanding. That was a very, very good example of get your basics better than the opposition and then do the other things in the game well. You're always going to be the superior team. I thought it was really a catalyst, was the set piece for what they were able to do throughout the rest of the game because they were functioning so good in the basics of the game.
Did it surprise you how well we played? I know you always ask the question, how well did the opposition allow you to play? But did it surprise you that with that team, because when it was announced on Friday, I was a bit underwhelmed by it all. And it was only because I'm looking at those names going, heck, half of you haven't really performed in Super Rugby. I don't know what other gauge we can use by in terms of measuring form. We're also missing a whole lot of players. But that team really played cohesively. That's what impressed me.
Absolutely it did. And yes, it did surprise me. Usually, traditionally, when you've got particularly new players coming into the mix, you've got an idea of a different way that you want to play. It'll take a little bit of time to get that rhythm, and that can be a bit disjointed. Quite often you see, and this has happened quite regularly in the past with the All Blacks, quite a bit of ball go down, the odd knock on, players timing off, passes not sort of being where they're supposed to be. Well, that certainly didn't happen at the weekend. So yes, I was surprised. I thought they would probably find their rhythm after 30 minutes maybe. Hopefully it wasn't going to take that long, but sometimes it can. But no, pretty much from the outset, they had a real idea of the way they want to play. A real interest to me also was the lack of box kicking from Aaron Smith. I think he probably only kicked 3-4 times in the entire match. The All Blacks went to their other kicking strategy, and that's a change from where they've been in the last 2 years. So we saw Geordie Barrett kicking, Bowden Barrett kicking, and Damien McKenzie kicking, and not a heap of box kicking. And in general, they played in the right areas of the field and got their kicking pretty well on the mark. So that was pleasing to see, and a change from where they've been.
Oh, I can't wait for this weekend. I mean, it's just set up perfectly, hasn't it, with both our teams playing? Yeah. So I mean, that's just going to be, I mean, bloody hell, being sidelined for that is going to be magnificent, mate. So I'll just end with this. I'll tell you what's been disappointing, though. Here, the All Blacks play as well as they've played. And as you say, we've had some other great sporting results over the weekend. And yet the mainstream media decide to make a huge blarney about what Sam Cane did. Now, whether or not he should or shouldn't, I hate these questions about whether it's unbecoming of an All Black captain. Justin, somebody's on the bloody field. You don't know who that person is. They're running around. They could be anyone. He threw a leg out there. He tripped. To then make the guy write these apologies or write them on his behalf, I must admit, I'm really disappointed in New Zealand rugby. I thought that they would have backed their man in this case and said, and somebody had actually gone in and done all of that for him rather than, I feel like he's been left to hang out to dry, and it's just not a good look.
Well, it's just not a good look. It looked untidy, but ultimately that person should not be on the field. And the repercussions of being on the field in an international and the threat to the current players in the current climate, you can understand getting spooked by something like that. Like I was on the field when the player came on in South Africa. I was right there actually and saw Norm Maxwell drill him into the ground, and Richie McCaw grapple him as well. But that's because they're in our space. They're in your area. And there's not a place for that. Fans are fans. They come along, they get entertained, and they're there to watch and enjoy you entertaining them. Their place is not on the field, and that guy should never have been on the field. Now, look, whether Sam Cane should or shouldn't have done what he did, again, when you get somebody out of your peripheral and it's something that you feel is a threat, then you just try to, dislodge that threat. And yeah, I think it's been massively blown out of proportion. I think a lot of the blame has to go on security and the person that was able to get onto the field, and secondly, his mindset to get on there. You're going to suffer some repercussions. Repercussions. But geez, we've seen plenty of times people really well hurt by security staff. So yeah, look, I get it in terms of what it looks like, but also we've got to protect our players. Stay off the bloody field and this won't be an issue.